There comes a moment in every woman's life when silence becomes louder than words, when compromise feels more like defeat, and when love starts to resemble a burden. We give, we nurture, we forgive, not because we are weak, but because we are strong. But strength is not meant to be stepped on, and dignity is not meant to be traded for temporary affection. Today, I want to speak to every woman who has ever felt invisible in the eyes of someone she gave her world to. I want to remind you, not of who you were in someone else's story, but of who you are in your own. This isn't about bitterness. This is about awakening, about reclaiming the parts of ourselves we've given away too easily. It's about knowing that being taken for granted isn't a reflection of our worth. It's a reflection of someone else's inability to see it. Knowing your worth is the foundation of every relationship you enter, every decision you make, and every boundary you set. It's not about arrogance or ego. It's about self-awareness, self-respect, and an unshakable understanding that you are enough, exactly as you are. Too often, we wait for validation from the outside. We hope someone will see our efforts, appreciate our presence, and finally treat us the way we deserve to be treated. But when that recognition doesn't come, we begin to question ourselves. We start to think maybe we need to try harder, love louder, give more. And in the process, we forget that we were never supposed to earn basic respect. It should have been there from the beginning. Knowing your worth means you stop begging for crumbs when you deserve the whole table. It means you no longer chase someone who keeps walking away, or lower your standards just to keep someone in your life. You begin to realize that being alone is far better than being in a space where your existence is overlooked, your kindness is exploited, or your love is taken for granted. When you truly understand your value, your tolerance for disrespect disappears. You no longer settle for temporary attention, half-hearted love, or one-sided effort. You become unwilling to invest energy into people who cannot see your light, because you finally see it for yourself. People will treat you based on how you treat yourself. If you carry yourself like someone who deserves loyalty, honesty, and respect, others will be forced to either meet that standard or walk away. But when you compromise your worth just to be liked or accepted, you send a silent message that it's okay for others to do the same. This isn't about being rigid or unapproachable. It's about creating a life where you're not constantly explaining your value to people who never really cared to understand it. Confidence built on self. Worth doesn't need external confirmation. It radiates from within. It speaks through your choices, your silence, your standards, and your refusal to settle for anything less than mutual respect and genuine connection. Silence is often misunderstood. People think silence means weakness, surrender, or defeat. But in truth, silence can be the loudest response you give when someone starts taking you for granted. There comes a point when words become useless, when explaining yourself over and over starts to feel like begging, and when justifying your feelings only drains your spirit. At that point, silence becomes your shield. It's the moment you choose peace over conflict, dignity over desperation. It's the moment you stop trying to make someone understand what they refuse to see. Silence isn't the absence of power. It's the presence of control. When someone no longer listens to your words, when your emotions are brushed off as dramatic or your presence taken as a given, speaking more only amplifies their disregard. But the moment you become silent, everything shifts. Your absence starts to speak. Your distance becomes noticeable. Your lack of reaction becomes a mirror. Silence forces the other person to sit with their own choices, without the distraction of your explanations or your efforts to fix things. It gives you space to reclaim your thoughts, gather your strength, and breathe without pressure. In silence, you no longer perform emotional labor for someone who refuses to match it. Choosing silence isn't about giving the silent treatment. It's about no longer engaging in conversations that go nowhere. It's about choosing to preserve your energy when it's been constantly drained. When you stop reacting, you start reflecting. You see the situation for what it is, not for what you hoped it would be. Silence brings clarity. It removes the noise of empty apologies, recycled excuses, and temporary changes. It allows you to hear your own voice again, the one that may have been drowned out by the desire to be loved or accepted. And in that silence, something beautiful begins to happen. You stop waiting for someone to come around. You stop believing that your love needs to be louder to be worthy. You start remembering who you were before they made you feel small. Silence isn't giving up. It's rising above. It's choosing to protect your soul, to honor your value, and to walk with grace even when the world doesn't offer you the same in return. Love, in its truest form, should uplift you, not diminish you. It should feel like a safe place, not a battlefield where you're constantly defending your self-worth. When love begins to chip away at your self-respect, it stops being love and starts becoming a form of emotional erosion. There's a dangerous line that gets crossed when you start accepting behavior that makes you feel unworthy, all in the name of keeping the relationship intact. Sometimes we confuse patience with tolerance, forgiveness with weakness, and loyalty with self-abandonment. But no matter how deep the love is, if it consistently demands that you compromise your dignity, it's no longer healthy. Self-respect is not negotiable. It's not something you sacrifice just to keep someone in your life. The moment love begins to make you question your value, the moment you find yourself constantly apologizing for having needs, emotions, or standards, that's when you know something is wrong. A relationship should be a partnership, not a place where one person constantly bends while the other remains unmovable. Real love does not silence your voice, belittle your emotions, or make you feel like you're asking for too much. It respects your individuality and never demands that you lose yourself just to be loved. There's strength in walking away from a love that no longer respects you. Not because you're bitter or unforgiving, but because you finally understand that love is not a betrayal, it's a necessity. When you begin to respect yourself, you stop accepting apologies without change. You stop settling for bare minimums. You stop justifying poor treatment with memories of better times. And most importantly, you begin to understand that you deserve the kind of love that makes you feel seen, heard, and valued every single day, not just when it's convenient for someone else. Holding onto your self-respect might sometimes feel lonely, but losing it in a relationship will eventually cost you far more. Your confidence, your peace, your sense of identity. Love should never feel like a sacrifice of who you are at your core. If it requires you to constantly shrink yourself, silence your truths, or beg for consistency, then it's not love. It's dependency dressed as devotion. There's no beauty in enduring love that breaks you from the inside out. No nobility in staying just to prove you can. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. Every time you let something slide, every time you stay silent when your boundaries are crossed, you send a silent message, this is okay. And over time, those small compromises start to add up. What was once unacceptable becomes the new normal. Respect slowly turns into disregard, and appreciation fades into entitlement. People learn from your reactions, your silence, your forgiveness, and your willingness to stay even when you're hurt. They watch what you allow, and they adjust their behavior accordingly, not necessarily out of malice, but because you've set the precedent. Setting boundaries isn't about being difficult or dramatic. It's about self-preservation. It's about understanding that your emotional space deserves protection just as much as your physical space. When you make it clear what is and isn't acceptable, you're not being unreasonable. You're being honest about your standards. And if someone continually pushes past those boundaries, then it's not your responsibility to teach them how to care. It's your responsibility to care enough about yourself to walk away. People who value you will naturally respect your limits. They won't need to be convinced of your worth or reminded of your effort. When you consistently accept less than what you deserve, you start to internalize that treatment. It seeps into your self-esteem and reshapes how you see yourself. You begin to think that maybe this is all you're worthy of. Maybe love is supposed to hurt sometimes. Maybe being taken for granted is just part of the package. But it's not. Healthy love doesn't demand silence. It doesn't thrive in imbalance. It grows in mutual respect, trust, and consistent effort. Changing how others treat you starts with changing what you accept. It's not about being cold or detached. It's about being clear and firm. It's about recognizing the first signs of disrespect and addressing them, instead of brushing them aside. The more you let things go, the more they will continue. But the moment you draw the line, the moment you decide that you're no longer available for disrespect in any form, everything begins to shift. You start to attract better, not because the world has changed, but because you did. Because you finally chose to believe that your peace, your energy, and your love are too valuable to be wasted on someone who doesn't honor them. Walking away is one of the hardest things you'll ever do, especially when your heart is still holding on. But sometimes the most powerful act of self-love is to stop fighting for a place in someone's life when they've already shown you they don't value your presence. It's not weakness. It's strength disguised as heartbreak. It takes courage to detach from something familiar, even if that familiarity comes with pain. It takes bravery to look at someone you love and choose yourself instead. People often associate staying with loyalty, as if endurance equals love, but the truth is, not all love is meant to be held onto. Some love teaches you, breaks you, and awakens you, only to push you back to yourself. When you walk away, you are not abandoning the relationship. You are reclaiming your peace. You are saying that your emotional well-being matters just as much as anyone else's. You are drawing a line between what you've been given and what you know you deserve. And the moment you take that first step away, you begin to feel a shift. The fog starts to lift. You remember the parts of yourself that were buried under the weight of constantly trying to fix what was never yours to repair. You start to breathe again, not with anxiety or hesitation, but with clarity and truth. Walking away doesn't mean you didn't love deeply. It means you loved enough to try, but you love yourself enough to stop. It's realizing that your worth isn't tied to who stays and who leaves. It's in how you treat yourself in the aftermath. Do you continue chasing validation, or do you begin healing? Do you keep reopening wounds just to keep someone close? Or do you finally let the scars form and start building yourself anew? Every time you choose peace over chaos, self-respect over desperation, you take back your power. It's easy to stay in situations that feel familiar, even if they hurt. It's easy to keep hoping someone will change, to keep holding on to potential rather than reality. But when you finally walk away, you make space for growth. You make room for people who see your value without needing to be convinced. You give yourself the chance to become the version of you that was never meant to settle for less. The right person will never need you to shrink to fit their comfort. In a healthy relationship, love doesn't ask you to be less outspoken, less ambitious, less emotional, less of who you truly are. It doesn't ask you to dim your light so someone else can feel brighter. If someone is truly meant to be in your life, they will embrace your intensity, your strength, your truth. They will celebrate your growth instead of being threatened by it. Too often, women are made to believe that being too much is a flaw, that they should tone down their passion, their dreams, their opinions just to keep the peace or avoid making someone else uncomfortable. But real love doesn't require you to play small. When you start shrinking yourself for someone else's approval, you slowly start disappearing. You silence your voice, you edit your personality, you suppress your needs, and in doing so, you lose connection with your authentic self. A relationship that demands you to constantly adjust yourself isn't love. It's control disguised as care. The right person will want you to show up fully. They won't compete with your power. They'll stand beside it. They won't silence your confidence. They'll admire it. They won't be intimidated by your independence. They'll be inspired by it. Being fully yourself should never feel like a risk. If it does, then you're not with someone who truly sees you. The right partner will make space for your complexity. They will understand that loving someone means embracing all parts of them, the strong, the vulnerable, the ambitious, the messy. You won't have to hide your achievements to protect their ego or downplay your feelings to avoid being labeled dramatic. You'll be allowed to grow, to speak, to feel, to lead. You won't be asked to make yourself more digestible just so someone else can feel comfortable in their own insecurity. When you're with the right person, you feel safe being your fullest self. There is no fear of judgment or rejection for simply existing as you are. You are not walking on eggshells, constantly monitoring your tone, your reactions, your successes. Instead, you feel encouraged, supported, and seen. You are not constantly proving your worth because they already recognize it. You're not minimizing yourself to keep their love because their love was never conditional on you being smaller.